All right, good afternoon. It is just about 2 p.m. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Maylee Cook, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today. We can go to our next slide. And the next one, let's start with our announcements. We'd like to let you know that our latest Oversight Trends update is available. This report provides an interconnection-wide context of our registered entity compliance programs. We would love for you to check that out. If you have any questions about this report, you can email oversight@wec.org. And our next announcement is that our Board of Directors meetings will be held at our WECC office here in Salt Lake City. That is a hybrid meeting, and it will be December 9th and 10th. And you can access the link that we will drop in the chat here for you if you're interested in checking out that. I'll also give you the one for the Oversight Trends. Forgot that one first time around. And then our technical session for our Board of Directors meeting will be on market development in the West. Moving on to our next announcement, it will be January 27th and 28th. We'll be holding a NERC self-report and mitigation training. This was what was formerly known as Enforcement Fundamentals. So if you've been looking for an opportunity to take that course, here is a chance for you to do that. At LADWP, they are hosting us, and it will be those 2 days, and I will drop the registration information in the chat for you. And going on to our next announcement, Reliably First will be hosting the 2026 ERO Women's Leadership Conference. They've got a great lineup of speakers for us this year, and they're also doing a hybrid one this time. It's been virtual in the past, but this time around, they will be doing that in Cleveland, Ohio, as well as virtually. And if you're able to attend in person, they have a reception as well as a photographer providing headshots. So there's some great opportunities if you're able to go in person, and we will get you the link to attend and register for that as well. Our final announcement, that was our final announcement. Let's go on to the antitrust policy. All WECC meetings are conducted in accordance with the WECC antitrust policy and the NERC antitrust compliance guidelines. All participants must comply with the policy and guidelines. This meeting is public. Confidential or proprietary information should not be discussed in open session. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly. By participating, you give your consent for your name, voice, image, and likeness to be included in that recording. WECC strives to ensure the information presented today is accurate and reflects the views of WECC. However, all interpretations and positions are subject to change. If you have any questions, please contact WECC's legal counsel. We love for you to participate on these calls. Feel free to send any questions and concerns to WECC meetings in the chat, as well as using the raise hand feature, and we can call on you and ask you to share. Here is our agenda of topics today, and we will just turn the time first over to Angela Shapiro for the 2025 annual self-certification update.
Great, thank you, Maylee. Anyone who has been around in the WECC Western Interconnection has probably heard of our annual self-certification. And this year is not going to be any different. We will be sending out a batch of self-certifications starting for the 2025 calendar year. So if we can go to the next slide, please. As I said, the monitoring period for this self-certification will be the 2025 calendar year. So we are assessing your compliance, or asking you to assess your compliance from January 1st through December 31st. We will be sending out a notification through a line starting December 15th. But we ask that you don't respond to it until January 1st because you'll need to know the end of the year information. And then we're asking for all of the responses to be submitted no later than March 2nd of 2026. So these scopes of the self-certification will be based on our ERO enterprise regulatory priorities. And just of note, not all entities will be required to self-certify. We'll be sending them to a specific subset who are not monitored in other ways, essentially. And another thing to keep in mind is that we want you to review your primary compliance and alternate compliance contacts in cores prior to December 15th so that the notification that comes out is sent to the appropriate contacts at your entity. And then we'll go to the next slide. So we wanted to provide you with these resources so that you have access to the training materials that NERC has put together. We have the link to the Align and SEL page that includes all of their training materials for registered entities, the webinars, and the user guides. And I've highlighted these specific user guides as well, the self-certification and the attestations, and both of those were updated this year. So they're fairly accurate guides to walk you through the process. And that is all I had to cover. If there are any questions, I'm open to it.
Thank you so much for that update. I am not seeing any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn the time over to Fahad.
Thank you, Melly. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right, let's see if I can start the video too. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I will be going over some of the significant NERC and WECC items that have recently been published or occurred. Next slide. Earlier this month, NERC published the CMEP implementation plan for 2026. There are a few changes with the IP this year, which I will be going through in a few minutes. NERC posted the updated frequency response and frequency bias setting for operating year 2026 with regard to BAL 3-2 R1 compliance, which goes into effect on the 1st of December. NERC also posted an ERO Enterprise endorsed implementation guidance for trip circuit monitoring. This implementation guidance is focused on demonstrating a DC controlled circuit configuration with trip circuit monitoring that qualifies for the exclusion contained in TPL 1-5.1. The annual transmission planning and modeling workshop was hosted by NERC. It was hosted in collaboration with EPRI, which took place last week. This year's workshop focused on essential actions for IBR performance and modeling, NERC projects and activities, IBR modeling and requirements, large load industry activities, AI in transmission planning, very informative sessions. It took place over 2 days. The workshop lasted for 2 days, and the presentations from both the days are now available on the NERC website. From the WECC side, the webinar about meeting the EOP-12, EOP-12-3 R8 PDS, periodic data submittal criteria for generator cold weather constraint. That webinar is now available on WECC's YouTube channel. As part of the Reliability in the West series, the last session focused on the upcoming winter weather outlook that also included key issues related to entity preparedness. There are some really cool presenters who participated in the last series. So I highly encourage to check that out. The recording for that session is also available online. WECC posted a report on the IBR disturbances in the Western interconnection. This report contains 4 BPS disturbances involving widespread reduction of IBR output that occurred in WECC's footprint between March through June 2024. WECC also posted 2024 missed operations report. This report includes several recommended practices that can establish solid performances and practices that can actually help limit the number of mishaps in the Western interconnection. And lastly, WECC hosted a 2-day virtual grid fundamentals course that involves comprehensive explanation of how the electric power system works, how it is managed, the technology that is used, the market side and the operational side as well. I know there is a lot more that has happened, but these are some notable ones that I wanted to highlight today. Am I next one, Melly, for the IP? Yes. So as I mentioned earlier today, there have been a few changes with this year's IP. There are some addition and deletion on the areas of focus as well. Plus, we have a lot of newly registered entities who will be participating in oversight activities next year. And just wanted to give a brief overview of what the CMEP IP is, how it is developed, how it's utilized by NERC, and how it can be beneficial for the registered entities. So starting with what is the CMEP IP? The CMEP IP actually describes the risks that will be prioritized for the region's CMEP activities. It's one of the key input into planning for the oversight activities, and that can be the various engagements like audits, spot checks. It can guide the self-certification or outreach activities, and several internal training opportunities as well. The intention of this report is to cover risks that are regional and those that span across the US grid. Also, this report, this IP is not developed in a silo. So NERC and the regions work collaboratively throughout this CMEP IP's development, which starts several months in advance. The CMEP IP represents the ERO enterprise's high-level priorities for its CMEP activities and provides guidance to the regional staff that are involved with monitoring and enforcement. While compliance with the reliability standard is evaluated as part of continuous monitoring, the focus of a mature CMEP is on how the ERO enterprise and the industry, through its public posting, proactively identify and mitigate the risks to the reliable and secure operation of the BPS. So how it's developed. Next slide. As I mentioned, the NERC and the regional staff work collaboratively. So we work together to evaluate various reports of NERC and regional committees. One of the primary reports that we rely on is the ERO Enterprise Reliability Risk Priorities Report, which is developed and posted by the RISC. Long-term and seasonal assessments are also reviewed. We also review the analysis of events. Compliance and enforcement data is reviewed. So all of these information is taken under account. It's reviewed internally by NERC and the regions to identify the existing and emerging risks to the BPS, which are then mentioned under risk elements. So it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us but it is the CMEP's take to highlight these risks. Also, the CMEP IP is published on or about November 1st, and chronologically it follows after the risk report, the RISC published report in the summer. So we really look forward to that report and gather as much information as possible that we can translate that for compliance and enforcement work. And talking about risk elements, next slide. As we can see, there are a few changes from 2025, particularly the incident response risk element was dropped. The NERC and the regions determined that the risk is now more stable, as we have seen the industry's participation in incidents response, participation in GridX activities, the amount of compliance and enforcement data or the self-reports and findings that we are seeing on those applicable SIP requirements. We determined that the risk is now more stable and it can be removed from the 2026 IP. Not that it justifies that the risk is eliminated, it can never be. However, from the priorities level, it is the ER enterprise and expects that the industry and the regional entities would continue to monitor risks related to incidents response and will continue to report it if there are any concerns or non-compliances. The risk element related to transmission planning and modeling and inverter-based resource was condensed into grid transformation, and I will talk about the grid transformation risk element in a little bit. Next slide. So some of the notable changes related to the standards and the requirements in areas of focus are, with regard to supply chain, we removed SIP 13R2, but we added SIP 13-2R1 and SIP 7-6R2. With regard to physical security, SIP 6-6R1 was included. With regard to the extreme weather response risk element, the updated version of EOP 12 was included. And we also added FACT 3-5R6. And there are lots of the requirements from the previous risk element related to transmission planning and modeling and IBR that was moved into the grid transformation. But we also added several cybersecurity standards as shown on the slide. Next slide, talking about grid transformation. NERC and the regions realized that it would be beneficial to gather various grid transformation related risks under one risk element, as this remains a significant risk to the reliable operation of the electric system. We are continuing to see risks related to capacity and various new large loads coming into our system. The landscape of the customer demand has changed with the rapid deployment of these data centers and large manufacturing units. With the large amount of IBR penetration and natural gas resources, which are continuing to be replaced with IVR, and additional dependencies on natural gas. We found that there has to be several sections identified that addresses these risks. So we have different information highlighted within these sections of grid transformation risk element, in addition to the various cyber and physical security risks that comes in with the addition of newly interconnected facilities, newly connected IVR plants that causes an additional burden and strain to the system. Moving on to how do we utilize the IP? Next slide. So how does this impact NERC and the NERC regions and the registered entities? So while the regional CMEP staff decides the monitoring tool based on the registered entity's unique characteristics, registered entities should consider the risk elements and their associated areas of focus as they evaluate opportunities and priorities to enhance its internal controls and compliance operations to mitigate the risks. WECC will continue to be informed by the IP for its oversight planning purposes. We'll continue to review the IP, the Western Interconnection Risk Register, the information that we get from the registration group for newly registered entities and any changes for the existing entities, the inherent risks and performance risk. We will continue to review the performance data through the GADS system, the TADS system, MIDAS, and TEAMS, and the enforcement and mitigation data. They'll all continue to help us inform the oversight planning work. However, it is a great opportunity for the registered entity staff to look at the risks highlighted in the risk elements and utilize that as one of the key inputs to strengthen your internal controls and compliance operations. That's it from me, mainly on the IP and on how WECC would utilize it.
Thank you so much. We'll give it a moment to see if there's any questions for your topics, Fahad. We did get a follow-up question to the self-certification update, and that is, I had someone ask a clarifying question about what the scopes will be based on for the self-certs. Could you give some clarity on that, Ben?
I can. The scope for the self-certification is primarily the ERO enterprise regulatory priorities, including the CMEP IP that Fahad's just been explaining, with additional consideration of the entity's responsibilities, other information we have about them, and other monitoring.
Wonderful. Thank you both. And I'm not seeing any questions for you at this time, Fahad, so we can turn it over to Curtis.
All right, thank you, Mealy, and thank you, Fahad. I always look forward to that IP every year, and the effort that you put in and the ERO enterprise is tremendous. A lot of people don't realize how much work behind the scenes happens. But here about cold weather, I think everybody should have been aware that any constraints developed under EOP 12-2 that met the EOP 12-3 criteria were to be submitted by 11/14. I will say we have not received any since 11/14, so I can say nobody was late as of today. Hopefully no one has any others in their back pocket at this point. We probably had around 35, 40 actual submittals. I don't know exactly how many units associated with those, but probably well in the 200, 300 range for sure. Majority of them blade icing, and then solar panels, snow on solar panels. One of the things that we did find out is people assume that a known constraint didn't require supporting information. You have to dig a little bit, but in the TR and in the expectations that were built along this standard, you do have to support whatever declaration you have. And so we had a few RFIs according to trying to get some more information on that. Shout out to NAGF and NAGF members for getting a lot of information together and sharing it. I think that was a valuable exercise by that group, and I deeply appreciate it. We did have one rejection. Somebody basically followed EOP 12-2. They may have just submitted their EOP 12-2 declaration declaring cost. And I caution people, of course, we had to reject that one because that's not allowed under EOP 12-3. They came back with other information that wasn't cost related after some discussions with them, but it took a little bit of discussion. There is a known issue with Align that if you submit a PDS without any data, it will go automatically to completed. I think we only had a few of those, but we caught those internally and reached out to those people, reopened those PDSs so they could submit them with the spreadsheet that was provided. And thinking about the spreadsheet and the process, you think you have everything right. I think we did some checks on the process during the development of the standard, of course. People had some questions. The standard drafting team with NERC kind of answered a lot of the questions. The spreadsheet we tested with a few entities. Now that we've seen what has came in with the spreadsheet and what has occurred with the process, we're likely going to be updating that a little bit based on the interactions that we've had. But I think next the December meeting, I'll probably have some more slides associated with the constraints, and I don't know if we'll get the process and things updated by then. I tend to doubt that, but we'll have some more information. One key thing for people to remember, the 36 calendar months for review starts when your constraint is declared valid. So make sure you keep up with that thought process within your programs, build that into your programs. If you declared any constraints and they were called valid, that's that starting date. In theory, we've only got 5 or 6 outstanding ones that we haven't declared as valid yet. We are working with that entity, and I expect those to be cleared out here pretty quick. So thank you for meeting the deadline, and thank you for working with us and working with the ERO Enterprise, and we'll go forward with that. I did want to add one additional thing that's somewhat related to cold weather. Hopefully people saw the announcement about the abeyance period. There's some information that was sent out by NERC about that. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that as we move forward. I'll put the links in the chat there, but we're working. It says I can't send the message. Maybe I'll send it to you and you can put it in there. We're working internally on making sure we have everything lined up just in case we need to have any abeyance for R1 in EOP 12-3. But open for any questions if you have any. And mainly I sent that through the back channel there.
Great. I will get that posted for you to the chat, and I don't see any questions for you at this time, so we can move along to our update from Donovan.
All right. Thank you, Maylee. Everyone's favorite part of this, the standards, right? There's always seems to be new pieces being added to this. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so we'll start with FERC Order 901 Milestone 4 projects. These are, now that we have 901.3 is gone, now we have Milestone 4. Both of these projects are in the phase of they've addressed the SAR comments have come through, and now they're both going to be going to the SC to ask for the official authorization to begin drafting and changing standards definitions. Both of those will be being asked in December. The 2025-04 project, the planning studies, is also going to ask if they can take over 2 SARs from a previous project, the TPL SARs. As they've seen, there's a lot of overlap, so they're working on that. They're going to be both of the projects are moving forward pretty fast, pretty well. They're looking to have some in-person meetings in the first week of December, a couple of days. They found that last year a lot of work was done really well in the in-person meetings, so they're getting ahead of those. As well as they're looking to have a workshop held the end of February, beginning of March. They haven't nailed down exactly which one that will be. They're looking for a venue that will accommodate the right amount of people. So when that comes out and we find out exactly when that is, we'll make sure to let you all know. But that's where the 901 projects currently are for milestone 4. We can go to the next slide. Other projects that are going on, there's quite a few that are still moving. So these are some that there's actions that can be taken. 2022-04, that's out for comment and ballot. Currently, that is slated to close tomorrow. So if you haven't put comments or balloted on that yet, there's still another day to get in there if you're in the ballot pool. That will close tomorrow. The Planning Energy Assurance Project is out for initial comment and ballot through December 5th as well. As it's currently stated. Supply chain risk management, the SAR comment period is open through Friday, and then the ride-through revisions, the Order 909, the SAR comment period will end the 26th of this month. So there's still time to get in there, add some comments for all of those. When it comes to the SIP 14 risk assessment refinement, the 2023-06 project there at the bottom, there was the 4th ballot that was going to be going out. They paused on that. NERC did some outreach with regional entities and industry groups to see that if they could address some concerns ahead of the ballot, see if there's anything that could be done to add a little bit more chance of success to that, address concerns. And so they did outreach with various groups. And they'll be getting ready for another ballot here shortly. But NERC did a lot of outreach. They want to make sure that they're getting this right, that this is coming back, and that FERC will be happy with the result as well. And then we have the 2025-02 Internal Network Security Monitoring Standard Revision. This has a tentative posting period set for December 1st. It hasn't been fully announced, but it should be December 1st through January 17th. Is when they have that currently done. All of this, much of this information can also be found on the project tracking spreadsheet or the project tracking work plan that they have on the NERC website. The PMOS, the SC groups consistently make sure this is updated each month to try to make sure there's fairly accurate information. So this is just a snapshot of some of those. There's quite a bit of the low priority and the projects that have put on hold for the time being. But these are ones that have actions that are available or will be shortly coming up for industry to take. Next slide, please. All right, so we have the WECC projects. Projects going on here at WECC right now. We have the WECC 157. This is the PRC6 update to the regional variants. Recently, it came back from a comment period. The drafting team is working on responding to those comments. There were quite a few. With some suggested changes, and also there were some that came with potential changes that would be outside the scope of the SAR. The drafting team will be finishing up their comments to these at the scheduled December 4th meeting. Those comments will then be posted, and next steps for the drafting team will come out. It's probably most likely going to be that they will address what's within the scope of the current SAR and not ask for an expansion. And then this will be kicked back out and opened up for industry and some working groups to put some of these comments together and say, this is how we'd like the entire variance to be looked at overall. But the current scope had a very narrow goal of making sure that the cap language would be placed in from the R15 of the NERC standard. So the drafting team is leaning towards making sure that can be done, put in if they can get that in quickly and efficiently, and then go back with recommending another SAR be submitted for other changes or holistic looks at the variance in its entirety. But the next meeting, like it's stated there, is December 4th. Please come to that. There'll be updating and finishing their comments and deciding next steps. There's 2 other projects that will be going to the WSC shortly. And by shortly, I mean on Monday, there's a meeting for the WSC. The drafting team slate for each of these projects will be presented and considered by the WSC. If those are accepted, the WSC will then authorize the drafting teams to go out and look at these reviews. These are 5-year reviews. And as stated before in previous meetings, there's nothing that's been identified as problematic or needing to officially be changed. The reliability standards development procedures at WECC require that all criteria, regional reliability standards variances be looked at and reviewed every 5 years. So this is part of that review for those teams to look at that and potentially recommend no change, or if a change is found, take those actions. There's also the, I failed to put it on the slide, the WECC 142 project for the request to retire the BAL contingency reserve standard. That came back from the NERC 45-day comment period, and the drafting team is being asked to prepare a response to at least one of the comments for that. So they will be meeting tomorrow to get together, provide a response to comments for NERC that will be included in the filing package to FERC for the request to retire. Next slide, please. Speaking of the WSC, this is an older slide, but it's still relevant. Segment 7 representation is still being sought. That's the only seat that's currently vacant. So that's, if there's a desire for someone who fits into that segment to participate, please reach out to us. We'll get that going if there's a desire for that. The membership is, as it currently stands, under the current procedures. We will see what happens with the MSPBTF task force suggestions and what potentially will change here at WECC for those. But this is another plug. If there's a desire for anyone from segment 7 to represent on the WSC, those are open for nominations or consideration. Next slide, please. And this one should be the last one. This is just a quick update on that MSPBTF. So they've been going through for several outreach events, input events, socializing their current suggestions, working to help add clarity to those suggestions. There was a workshop, a forum that was held out here at WECC on the 13th of November. And then on the 19th, there was another event held in Atlanta where they got in person for that. And if you have not had a chance, or if you did not have a chance to watch those or participate in those, I believe that they will be recorded, or I believe that they were recorded and should be posted. I'm not sure if they're up yet, but I did think that these were good. I think there was a lot of clarity that was added. Those that attended as well asked again more good clarifying questions, and it's helping this get the group to some good suggestions and recommendations for that February goal of presenting that to the NERC board. They're going to take all this feedback, that they've been very open to it, receiving the feedback, incorporating this into their suggestions, their recommendations, and so they'll be putting together those final formal recommendations, getting those ready for the NERC board in February 26. I believe, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they're going to put some more suggestions together, and we'll probably socialize those one last time before they go and bring that to the board, just to make sure that they have, as much current information feedback to make those suggestions as actionable and as efficient as possible. This will be a big undertaking, and we know that there are going to be a couple of things that come out of this that will most likely affect the standards process in WECC. One of those would be if the SVS, the standard voting segments, change. Ours will automatically change with those. We have them written in that we keep the same ones that NERC does. So we'll go through the process if that changes, which would then affect the WSC, the seats on that, the voting segments out in WECC, the ballot body will have to get re-registration for that. But all that action to come once those suggestions are put in place by NERC, and we'll see what we need to do out here to stay in line and update our process. But those are the current updates that we have for standards going on. There's always a lot of moving parts, but as always, if there's questions, comments, feedback, please feel free to reach out to someone here in the standards department, and we'd love to answer that or get you involved in some way. So appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Donovan. Let's go ahead with Abby and the IVR update.
Trying to get my camera to behave here. Here we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, if you could go to the next slide, please. So I'm Abby Fellinger, and I am a registration certification engineer here at WECC. And the WECC registration team wanted to give a quick update on how the Category 2 registration process project is progressing. So NERC recently provided FERC an updated IBR work plan that included the latest tentative numbers of expected Category 2 generation assets per region. The update also included the approximate number of expected registrations that have been processed. In total, the regions and NERC have completed the registration process related to almost 25% of the expected Category 2 generation facilities across the ERO enterprise. But please keep in mind that the regions are still evaluating the Category 2 candidates, so these reported numbers can change at any time. WECC also wanted to provide some numbers that pertain specifically to our region. As shown on the slide, 8 entities have added either the Category 2 or the Category 2 GO and GOP functions to their current registration. And so when I say current registration, that's their NERC compliance registry IDs in the WECC region. And between those 8 entities, the total number of generation assets that fall into the Category 2 equals 39 assets. Again, this is specifically for the WECC region. Additionally, there's 52 entities that have been processed as new Category 2 GOs or as Category 2 GO-GOP entities. And again, keep in mind that some of these entities, they're registering in the WECC region for the first time. And then some of these registrations are related to established organizations that elect to keep their registrations separate. In total, there are 60 Category 2 assets that pertain to these new GO or GO-GOP registrations. Also, WECC is tracking the number of GOP-only entities. In total, we've so far seen 15 entities that have either activated the Category 2 GOP function within their existing NERC registration, or they have registered under a new Category 2 GOP registration in WECC. I also wanted to take a minute to express how much WECC appreciates the response time we've received from the majority of our entities as it pertains to providing RFI responses and also submitting a Category 2 registration request in CORS when we reach out to you about next steps. We've been able to stay on target with processing our registrations in a timely manner, and that's because of your assistance. So thank you for your efforts and for collaborating with us on this project. WECC also wanted to mention that we understand, not yet, still on the same slide. WECC also wanted to mention that we understand that some organizations are in the process of determining who will hold GOP responsibilities in the future for their Category 2 generation assets. If a GO hasn't determined who will be their GOP on May 15, 2026, we will advise the GO to register as the Category 2 GO and GOP in CORS until there is more clarity on who will assume the GOP role in the future. Once a designated GOP has been determined for that entity, WECC and the entity will work together to revise the applicable registrations accordingly. We are also seeing instances where the current GOP contract is coming to an end and a new contract with a different GOP provider is being implemented with a future effective date. In those instances, the GOP will document the new GOP. The GO will document the new GOP within their GO-GOP asset form. And they'll also provide the new O&M agreement in CORS that they have with that new upcoming GOP. But please just reach out to us if you have any questions about how to document your GOP for your specific situation. we'd be happy to jump on a call to discuss it. Next slide. So this one's a short slide, and most of you may be aware of this already, but NERC recently updated their website and it is more user-friendly. So if you haven't had a chance, please take a few minutes to check out their redesigned website. You could also access NERC's IBR registration initiative page by clicking the link on this slide. There's a lot of good information to review on the IBR site, so I highly encourage you to check it out. Next slide. And I wish I knew how many times I said GEO and GOP during this presentation. Had to be a lot. But one thing that I would like to also mention about the processing of these registrations is you're receiving these registration letters now with an effective date in the future of May 15, 2026. But your entity information will not be on the NERC registry matrix regarding the Category 2 registrations until May 15, 2026. So that's something I just want to make sure everybody understands. And in closing, please reach out to WECC registration if you have any questions about the registration process. It could be about Category 2s or any other registration activities that are coming up. So here's all of our contact information. We encourage you to utilize it, and that's all I have if there's not any questions.
Thank you so much, Abby. No questions at this time. Let's go ahead into our final topic of the day, and we'll turn it over to Mike and Don.
Good afternoon, Mary Lee and everybody else. Don, I'll just go ahead and quickly do a quick intro, and then you can take it over, okay? Okay. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Krum, and I am with WECC. I'm a cybersecurity auditor here. Today, myself and Mr. Don Kuntz will be talking about SIP 12-2, the new version. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Don for the first part. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next slide, please. What we're going to be discussing is the effective date of SIP 12-2, the FERC orders, and what changed in SIP 12-2 and 5 requirements under SIP 12-2. Next slide, please. SIP 12-2 was approved by FERC on May 23rd of 2024, and its effective date is July of 2026. So any audit notices on or after March 1st of 2026 may include SIP 12-2 in its scope. Next slide, please. So FERC Order 866, when FERC approved SIP 12-2, they required NERC to add redundancy and recoverability to the current standard. And that's how we came up with SIP 12-2. Next slide, please. So we went from three requirements to a 5 requirement standard. Our 1.2 added redundancy to the plan, and our 1.3 required recoverability and a plan for recoverability. So that changed our 1.4 and 1.5 to include our 1.2 and our 1.3. The only thing that really stayed the same was our 1.1, and that's where the controls are at on protecting the RTA, RTM data. So we'll just jump right into the requirements. Next slide, please. So 1.1 hasn't changed from SIP 12-1 to 12-2. Is still required to have the controls, to identify the controls to protect real-time monitoring and real-time assessment data between the control centers and associated data centers. Next slide, please. The first requirement that really changes is requirement 1.2. And 1.2, you have to identify and explain how you're protecting or how you're going to mitigate the risk of a loss of ability to communicate between control centers. The one thing, recovery loss of RTA, RTM data will could bring in your CIP-8 and CIP-9 programs, but don't forget that there is certain aspects of CIP-12 that doesn't fall under the CIP-12. ICCP routers are normally not best cyber asset, so you would have to account for this in your CIP-12 plan. Next slide, please. So under requirement 1.2, ways of shown availability is you could identify alternate communication paths between control centers. You need to identify redundant equipment and alternate systems of data transmission. Recovery loss of communications could bring in as your one thing, sorry about that. One thing to remember is TOP1 deals with redundant paths within the control centers, and CIP-12's primary is external connectivity between the control centers. But you could refer to your TOP1 when you're talking about redundant equipment. And also remember, you could use your alternate control center as a path for your redundant paths to other control centers, unlike on TOP1. So we'll go on to the next slide and I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Don. Let me go ahead and get my slide here. Requirement R1.3. What we're looking at is identification of methods used to initiate the recovery of communication links. Don's already touched upon that somewhat, basically considering the RTA and RTM between control centers. With that in mind, maintaining availability is really the key essential here that we're looking at. It supports uninterrupted operations and helps prevent potential risks to reliability of power systems. With that in mind, recovery of the RTA and RTM communications, Don's already mentioned, that could bring in other CIP programs like your CIP-8 or CIP-9, depending on the event that may be occurred. Identifying methods for recovering of the communication links should be in your CIP-12 plan or reference other applicable plans for restoring the links that may have caused a fault, an issue, an event, whatever it may be at that point in time. The CIP plan maybe, or the CIP-12 could also, again, initiate recovery of other informations with the vendors or link restoration. So with part of it, and especially in the third bullet there, sharing data with other responsible entities, supporting the responsibilities and restoration alignments. Those type of things should be documented within your CIP-12 or even another standard that would rely on the CIP-12. Contractual agreements, your memorandum of understandings, especially the responsibilities between two parties, or even possibly even a third party too as well. Next slide, please. Requirement R1.4. Identification with responsibility implemented the method as required in 1.1 and 1.2. Okay, so we need to apply any logical or physical locations of where securities were applied at. The security protections may be based upon various factors and impact levels to that control center. Operational obligations of an entire communication link, including both endpoints, okay? Who has control of what belongs to the control center of another responsible entity. You need to look into that type of situation. Entity without operation obligations for the communication link may demonstrate compliance by ensuring the communication link's endpoint is within the control center. So again, identifying where end-to-end is being communicated and who has responsibility of that. And also the which responsible entity may manage that end of the communication link. There are times and questions where a entity may say, well, that's not on our side of the equation. That may be true, but you should have at least some sort of communication which you can initiate with the other party to say, we have an issue. Are you experiencing an issue on your side? Make sure that's. There's one other thing too on the note on this one. With SIP 5-8, which will be the new standard in effect in a while, R1.6, there's basically a caveat in there, protecting the data traversing communication links used to span a single ESP between PSPs. It excludes RTA and RTM data while being transmitted between control centers, and that is subject to SIP 12. Next slide, please. With 1.5, basically the control centers are owned and operated by different responsible entities. Identifications of responsible of each responsible entity for implementing methods as required under 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. So 1.5 is encompassing a lot of the other standards, at least the very beginning of that, to say what do we need? Well, we have operational relationships between responsible entities. There's no single way to identify responsibilities and applying security and availability protections. There could be many ways, actually, that could be happening. Responsibilities might identify requirements for after-hours support in situations where data availability is reliant on independent actions. So during the work day and the work hours, you have a normal process. After hours, does that process change? Therefore, you need to take a look at that. Responsibilities must be documented to clearly identify the responsible parties and the point of demarcation where responsibility of communication links transfer from one entity to another. Again, we've kind of already spoke about that. Who owns what at what end and who communicates what type of event may occur. So again, a memorandum of understanding, minutes, documenting, having a call list, things of that nature that we may want to just appropriate or take a look at. And I'm sorry for my quick talking at the moment. I'm just, we were kind of getting short on time. And Meili, you can go to the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Don and Mike, for that update. I am not seeing any questions for you at this time. Really appreciate everyone presenting today. We really appreciate all of our presenters for giving up their time and coming and provide those updates for us. We will have, if we go to our next slide, we'll have one more of these calls this year. So we will hope to see you on December 18th, same time, same place. And have a great rest of your day, everyone.